About it. I hit a record. Oh, you want a number, I bet.
Well, we need to do both intros,
Right.
Mhm.
75 is
and I
the
guess
us intro.
Do we do the Hyrule Field Report one first?
yeah, I was
Uh
gonna say we'll do the Hyrule Field one first because Matt's an even lazier editor than me,
Cool.
and he'll just want to be able to chop that off and go from there.
All right.
So, oh, I meant to message you, Matt, and say like listen to the first 5 minutes of a Hyrule Field before we start. Did you do that?
I played a couple, yeah. I just say my name
Okay,
basically,
so
right?
Oh,
I let
you don't need a local recording from it at all, no.
no, because well, no, because no one else is gonna. So fuck it.
as a tryhard, I made sure to watch both the movies you guys watched and listen to the episodes.
Nice.
So I did that.
Dedication right there.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You guys are dedicated to the
I mean,
craft.
they were fucking good movies. So yeah.
Yeah, it's not
Mm.
like it was sure.
Yeah.
I wasn't that dedicated. I had to listen to a podcast about Jay Leno's acting career.
I see. I will not do that.
Hmm.
If we're doing a Jay
All right.
Leno podcast, I'm just gonna skip it. All right.
Who's Jay Leno?
He's one of the Saturday Night TV hosts in
Right.
America. The one with the big ass
He's
chin.
he's
Oh.
not he took over for like one of the funniest people in the world,
Mm.
and then another one of the funniest people in the world took over after him, and then he like used his power to seize back he took the show back. So
Have you
everyone hates him.
have you ever seen
see.
the late shift where Kathy Bates is playing his manager?
No.
No.
Oh, that's great because she's like the, like obscenity laden just power manager or whatever.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
All right. I'm Luke Summerhays.
I'm James J. Moyles.
I'm Matt Commages.
I'm Mark Malik.
Now Mercy.
And you're listening to Hyrule Field Report. And Jay, what did we do last week?
We finished the podcast. Well, for now.
And what are we up to this week?
This week we're going to talk about a film that was probably a bit more relevant to the Zelda franchise than Nausicaa ended up being. We're going to be chatting about Princess Mononoke.
Right, Matt, I've forgotten the number already. What did you tell me?
75.
Okay. In at number 75, it's The Beast Princess.
Ooh, what a beast. Hi, everyone. It's Beast Princesses today on Films and Filth. This is Canon Podcasting. This is Matt here. There is
Mark.
There
Here is Luke.
There is Luke introducing guests today.
We have my co-host from Hyrule Field Report, Game Show, Monster Mash, sometimes Luke Plus Pokemon, James J. Moyles,
Hello, how are you all doing?
and my co-host from all of those podcasts, and also my co-host in life, Mercy.
Hello, guys.
Hey.
All right.
Should we give this movie a proper name? Mononoke Hime. I guess I should
Hime.
say it that way. Or Princess Mononoke,
Yeah.
depending on what language you want to rock.
It does
Yeah.
sound more poetic when you use the Japanese than just calling it Princess Beast.
I hate,
Yeah.
reading about the way Miramax did this, they kind of fucked it because you hear the title Princess Mononoke and you don't think of this at all.
What, the wine
it's more
seems
like
fucked it up?
it's more like what the title referred to was like Mononoke is sort of like an untamed beast and Hime is sort of like an honorific. So it's almost like a nickname. It'd be like naming the name of the movie Little Miss
Sunshine.
Untamed Beast,
Yeah.
which is, I'm not going to say you have to have the monarchy in your movie to have a princess, but it kind of would make sense if you did. But anyway,
This actually was my first viewing, and I thought we were getting a princess till I put it on. So,
Oh.
um,
Oh no.
So
So-
internet.
I
should
guess I'll give
we?
my
Yeah,
my
you-
why I didn't watch it till just now. I've also confused
Mhm.
myself this week because I did a Spirited Away podcast 2 days ago, so I watched the movies back to back to really confuse myself.
Okay.
I had to. But yeah, like I remember when this came out, the reviews were like, we didn't know Miyazaki or Ghibli yet in the States at all, so it's just like unanime that was popular, and the reviews were like it's long and boring. Which it's just, I mean, it's not boring, it's just long because animated films usually don't run over 90 minutes. So this is like, epic length, but I didn't think it dragged that much. Just kept
This
going.
is the
Absolutely not.
one. I'm right in saying this is the one that they sent a sword to Weinstein. Tell him,
Yes, with
you're not cutting
no
this."
cuts.
Yeah.
And if anybody draws fan art for this podcast, if you want to draw a rendition of Harvey being impaled by Mononoke with a no cut sword, then please go ahead.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway, when is of the length when Miyazaki introduced the premiere of the English version at TIFF, which I assume that something film festival, he said, with Princess Mononoke, I intentionally threw
Toronto
out.
International Film Festival.
That makes sense. Good call. With Princess Mononoke, I intentionally threw out all the rules of entertainment movie making, which is why it will take some time for a true evaluation of this film to emerge. I hope you will enjoy all of the ridiculously long 2 hours and 13 minutes.
Who said this?
You're
Miyazaki.
He's like
Miyazaki.
he's a little bit shady.
He's
He's a little bit shady.
sarcastic,
He's like,
which
okay.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, okay, you foreigners, listen up.
It's like the
I mean,
the Parasite
right.
director a few years
No,
back
yeah, for
saying,
sure. I'm not saying he's not. He's just a little bit, he's always been sassy.
giving it if only Americans could get over the 2-inch high wall of subtitles.
Yeah,
Legendary line. Legend.
I
absolutely.
loved that. Was my favorite year in Oscars. He made his Oscars kiss.
Oh yeah.
And they were both boys.
Yes.
I always suggest people like watch Miyazaki with subtitles because just the way people talk in Japan is kind of important, I think. But this is the point where they start getting all-star casts for the dubs. So I guess that's probably worth noting.
So I have egg on my face. I have said in previous podcasts that I've seen this movie. I was wrong. I thought I had seen it. Clearly, I had like about 30 minutes and I was like, no, I haven't seen this. This has too much
Wow.
weird shit in it that I would remember this, like the apes talking about how they wanted to eat the human and stuff. I would have remembered that. In the past week,
And
I've done a little catching up. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And like, I just wanted to know because it was your first time seeing it. I would love to know your impressions. I mean, I know you're talking about them, but I was just like curious to go like, hey, what do you think about it? Because I wish I could unseen it to see it again.
This is up in the past week. I was doing a little bit of filling in of my Ghibli like filmography. I watched Castle in the Sky, which you guys talked about, and
Love it.
also Nausicaa and Porco Rosso, which I didn't know Mercy was your favorite until I listened to your podcast afterwards.
Yeah.
But I did actually. The place I watched Porco Rosso only had the dubbed version, so I watched a version where he was voiced by Michael Keaton, and his nemesis was voiced by Carrie Elwes doing an insane Southern American accent. It was very distracting. It wasn't bad, but it was like I had to think of Batman the whole time I was watching it. It wouldn't.
I love how Gary Elwes
just
just shows up in the weirdest places.
yeah.
Like I always forget he's in Saw.
Yeah, I was
He's the
gonna
guy
bring
from
that up.
Princess Bride.
What's a weirder
Oh.
place to show up than in
Oh,
the
him.
basement in Saw? But yeah.
Yeah.
but it was very interesting watching those and then immediately watching this because I'm really of the opinion that Miyazaki grew like a lot over this period. I've seen Totoro before. I was really into Spirited Away when that came out in the West because the marketing for Spirited Away was all like spooky imagery, and I'm kind of a spooky bitch. I was all into that. But this as much spooky shit as that does, but it's also really hardcore like violence at the same time.
Mhm.
So yeah, I loved it. I feel like this deserves its reputation. It's one of the best movies that we've watched for this podcast. I know they're supposed to go up in order, like each one's supposed to be better than the last, but still, this is
Yeah, but I've seen some of what's coming later, and this is better than a lot of that.
I agree it's better than Howl's Moving Castle, which is actually the last one I watched. Like I have the ones I really haven't caught up with are the newer ones, but this is striking, the storytelling in this.
Yeah.
No
So I was
good.
in a similar boat to you, Mark. I assumed I'd seen this. And then a few months ago when I watched it with Mercy, I was like, I have not seen this film all the way through. Because even regardless of this podcast and the other podcast, we were watching all the Ghiblis just so we could go to the museum and appreciate it. And I'd only seen like Howl's and half of Spirited Away. And I assumed I'd seen more than that, but I hadn't. I'm watching this one. So first of all, I knew people called Breath of the Wild Ghibli-esque.
Mm-hmm.
It's very Princess Mononoke-esque. Like,
yeah.
His village at the start, that just is Kakariko Village. He's Link's wearing a blue tunic because Ashitaka wears one. Like, even Tears of the Kingdom, right? The whole, like, corrupted arm is from this.
Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure.
I mean, you could call a corrupted arm almost an anime trope in and of itself, but
True,
I think
but
you
yeah.
would get more of that in the, do sex crimes.
Or it contains, the ghost of your brother. But
Yeah.
actually it doesn't because it's drug-induced.
Mhm.
What the hell?
That's Metal Gear Solid.
Oh, okay,
Hell
come on.
yeah. Hell
Yep.
yeah.
Revolver Ocelot loses his arm, so then he puts on Liquid Snake's arm, so then he's possessed by Liquid Snake. But then you turn out he was never possessed by Liquid Snake.
Yeah. Even even has been influenced by Ghibli, maybe. But there was such a marketing for this in the West. I think it made me think I'd seen it because there's so many trailers for it. I was like, oh.
My overall sort of Ghibli knowledge is, we spoke about it on our last podcast we did on Hyrule Field Report. It's limited. I've only seen Totoro, Lapta, Nausicaa, and now this. So I have a really narrow breadth of knowledge on Ghibli, but I think this is far and away the best of the bunch that I've seen so far. Just everything about it really just impressed me throughout, like from the opening, action-packed opening in the village that you were talking about, Luke, very Kakariko-esque, and the big boar monster trampling through with all the Wrigley's all over it. It's so striking, even from the outset, and that just kept up throughout the whole film. And it still had all the sort of trappings I'd seen from the other Ghibli films. Like you had your hardworking community, a real sense of people once they got to Irontown. But yeah, I loved it. I loved the whole film.
So Matt, how was your viewing coming into it thinking it was going to be long and boring?
Oh, well, I wasn't so sure it's going to be boring. I just remember seeing that review way back in the day. I will say, like, I do like, I guess, Miyazaki's when it's like a little more. This one's almost like too real, right? I mean, it's got all the surrealist stuff, but it's got the messages that are just like a little bit of a drag. I mean, a needed drag. I'm just saying, like, it's not really fun in games, which Sento Chihiro and Totoro seem to have more fun in games, I guess. So in general, I think I would say I prefer those to this, but yeah, I mean, that's like, all of them are masterpieces. So it's just like, which one of those speaks to you more, I guess.
I'd say this is an example of when the concept of mainstream is a good thing, because this is something that can kind of speak to everybody. Okay, maybe you don't want to show it to very small children because they might be terrified forever. But I think a lot of the Ghibli films are like mainstream, digestible in a good way, and like I do more tend to watch the sicker shit in general, but that doesn't this is undeniably good, as we've all said.
So
But
you're our Ghibli expert. Where does this one fit in the canon?
Oh my God. Well, I don't know. Well, I can tell you guys that so I used to be really, really obsessed with Ghibli, and I would read. I got a hold of Miyazaki's essays, and I used to read them. I think I've seen every single one of his films. And I believe that Mononoke Hime is definitely like Miyazaki's storytelling polished, like one of the most polished and beautiful storytellings like in film, I think, out of all of his films. And that is like, it's not even one of my faves, right? But it is like definitely undeniably stunning. I mean, what do you mean within the canon? Within the canon of what?
Well, like of the Ghibli movies, like
Oh, I guess that's up there. But for me, it's really interesting that Totoro and Totoro became like the icon of Miyazaki, right? Like Miyazaki's movies. When when you go in, we live in Japan, right? And when we go out and check out the stores, the Ghibli stores, you see Totoros everywhere, right? And it's like, yeah, Totoro equals Miyazaki equals Ghibli. It became that iconic. But then it's like Mononoke Hime's merch is so like sporadic, like you barely see it here and there. And it's a little bit like I guess it's, how do you say, it's a little bit more difficult to get a hold of merch like Mononoke Hime's merch, because it's not that palatable to children, I guess. Of course. But when my brother came to visit, he was really like excited to get merch from Mononoke Hime, and he just couldn't find it. We found some good stuff, but not that much.
you have to like go in the Ghibli stores.
Yes,
right?
we had to go and look for it. But and really like, oh, I can see some characters here and there. But I think it's one of the movies that I definitely recommend for adults to see. Because when I saw it for the first time, I came from seeing House Moving Castle, I think, and Spirited Away, and then suddenly I see Ashitaka shooting an arrow, and then the arrow slices a man's arms.
Yeah.
And I was like, this was so graphic to me. And I said, how come this is a Ghibli film? I thought at the time. So it's a definitely raw and at sometimes uncomfortable, but I think it's just stunning the way it's done.
I think that really struck home for me with the introduction of Mononoke Hime, like herself, like the blood in the mouth, which is like cleaning
Sucking
the
the
wounds.
poison out of the
Of the wolf, and when she just turns around sharply to look at Shitaka, and just it's such a strikingly like almost like hauntingly beautiful in a way, like the way they frame the whole scene. But that's when it kind of struck me like, oh, this is like quite a special movie compared to the other ones. Not that I didn't enjoy the previous Ghibli films I've watched, but I loved them. But this really felt special, and I think that was that moment in particular that I kind of locked in, so to speak, and thought, okay.
Well, the change of gears, I guess, is that up to this point, Miyazaki movies were very fantasy, where this is kind of his like, Jedi, right? Where he's like kind of making this historical period drama, which
it's his only it's his only film set in feudal Japan, period. Which is interesting. I don't know.
Like a long time ago when humans and gods used to coexist together, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of this sort of period it's setting, with like the Amishi people being slowly driven out by the Yamato Japanese. It reminds me a lot of British myths, where you have the Celtic peoples and the fairies, and as the Romans move in, the magic leaves the land. You kind of get a little taste of that in Game of Thrones, where like the first men and the children of the forest were magical, but civilization sort of drives that away. And that's the same sort of implication here, where by the end, the forest is still there, but that magic is gone because civilization has sort of usurped it.
And yeah, when I started, actually, I wondered if it was like Jomon or something at first. It's like, no, we're just seeing a really out of the way village that.
Well, no,
that
they say Amishi.
yeah,
The
right, right.
Amishi is that kind of is it were evolved from the Jomon. So they were the Amishi were the indigenous people of Japan, and the what we think of today, you know, position of shogun, the Japanese, but it translates to like military commander in charge of expelling the barbarians.
Sorry,
Right.
And it was literally their job was to get rid of the Amishi.
hold on. You're gonna have to say that one more time because the internet connection just gave me a warning about it being crap, and then you turned into a robot.
Oh
Okay.
no.
What did I get up to?
Just start with your explanation where I said Jomon, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know why it's so crap today. You
Yeah, we've had a couple of times where you guys are frozen on us as well. Maybe we
Hmm.
should have done a local recording, Jay.
know.
Lessons learned.
Oh, that's what Matt gets
Oh.
for trying to not have to edit.
What did you say?
So yeah, the Amishi people were basically the descendants of the Jomon. They were the indigenous people of the Japanese Isles. And then the Yamato, what we call the Japanese people today, came down from Korea, landed in around Osaka, and spread from there. And the actual title of shogun, the original full title was like military leader for expelling the barbarians. And that was basically the only reason the Japanese state had a military, was to move up into the Amishi's territory. And then today, of course, there's still Amishi blood in the Japanese, but basically the only version of that indigenous culture that still exists is there's some Ainu populations up in Hokkaido, which is the indigenous
That crossed
population
my
of that
mind
island.
too. If I was like, am I watching Ainu? Which I
But
guess
they're
I
not
was in a way.
quite the
Not quite.
same, but they are both,
No, I also worked that out
pre-existing
quickly.
cultures.
I did come in this movie not doing the I mean, you don't need to do the research coming into a movie,
Oh yeah,
right?
I know.
Sometimes
But
I
we
do,
have,
sometimes I don't. And this one I came in relatively cold.
yeah, I read Japanese history all the time. So
Right, where I just saw
Well,
like I was just
Ugh.
seeing really old stuff and getting slightly confused because then when I saw like a relatively recognizable temple, I was like, wait a minute, this is not
well,
prehistoric.
and that is relevant because even to the Japanese, right, they don't talk about those indigenous peoples much. Like, I've told the story many times where one of our students thought he was being clever by calling me an invasive species, and I was like, "Oh, are you a Mishi? No, well then you're an invasive species too. You're from Korea, mate."
Well, all that I think highlights the thing that really surprised me about this movie, aside from the sick demons, was that it is a very political story. Like there is a lot
Very
of
much so.
negotiating. There's
Mhm.
a lot of, I mean, even just apes negotiating with boars, negotiating with wolves, which is it seems like that's sort of Ghibli's thing or Miyazaki's thing, where there is always a facet that you are not expecting at all. Where like mild spoilers, that Spirited Away is a pretty like chill, laid back movie. Totoro is kind of dark and very dark in some parts. Porco Rosso is pretty straight. I was expecting that to be wacky as hell, but the character Porco Rosso is a guy who is serious. So that's
It's just a dude.
yeah, but it's pretty cool that you don't necessarily know what you're going to get, and that certainly helped me identify that I hadn't seen the movie before. If it had been really straightforward, I might have just talked myself into thinking that I had seen it.
I really do like the god, how do you say, the way they talk to each other.
Mhm.
I think like Miyazaki's always done a good job of setting an ambience for his worlds, but also like, my goodness, when what was it? When the wolf, when she's talking to the boar who's like just getting cursed,
Yeah.
right? All of those scenes, for me, I'm like, all right, so they're talking to each other like royalty. And I guess they used to be, in a way, right? And I just think like, man, I like that he's setting all of this with a lot of precision. Have you guys ever seen how Miyazaki directs voice acting?
No.
No.
No? So interestingly, what's the name? I'm so sorry, I forgot. What's the name of the wolf that calls
Mono?
Moro?
yeah, Momo.
Moro.
Moro.
Okay.
So okay, so Moro's voice actress, she's a very important trans woman in Japan. And Miyazaki directed her like, so he's a very how do you say, he's very demanding, right? He's a very demanding man. And if something sounds off just a little bit, he goes, no, again, let's do it again. And then he goes, tell her to open her chest, like, like he has very interesting direction. There was one scene when she laughs at Ashitaka and she goes, ah ha ha ha, whatever. And that scene is the one that I saw how he directed it. And when they got the laugh, he almost stood up on his chair and went, yes, that's it. And he got so excited. He's like a child. So in a way, I was like, I like that. How do you say that? Those sides of him. And of course, as you mentioned, it's extremely political. I mean, Miyazaki he's never backed down from his, hey guys, chill. We are destroying the earth. The gods are dead. What are we doing? Right? He's always done that. He did it in Ponyo. He did it in a way, he does it in Porco Rosso, like the comments about war. He does it in Spirited Away. He does it here. He does it everywhere. It's like his main thing, I guess. But in this one, he's especially how do you say, direct, I think.
Yeah,
like, there you go.
Cameron
has even listed this as an inspiration behind Avatar.
Makes
sense.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I hate that IMDb gives me the full English cast before it gives me the Japanese cast.
I see.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, like, who's in the cast, because I had the choice,
Which cast?
on Netflix. The English cast of
Oh,
Mononoke.
I can read off the names real quick. Billy Crudup, Claire Danes, Minnie Driver, Billy Bob Thornton, Jada Pickett Smith, John DiMaggio. So, yeah.
Yeah.
What do I know
This
Billy
was-
Crudup from? I recognize his face.
He was a watch.
see his
He
face?
was Dr. Manhattan.
Exactly what I know him from. Thank you, Mark.
Who's
Yeah,
voiced,
This it's worth pointing out this was Miyazaki's first retirement film. This is his first time he retired. Happy 27th birthday to his first retirement.
They cannot pull that man away from that desk. They're gonna have to tie him up to the bed if they want him to retire. He's like, please let me do one more, please.
Just
So,
let him do one more.
I bet if his son, is like, hey, have you ever thought about retiring? It's like probably insults his son's films, and then he's like, fine,
I
keep working.
genuinely
Then.
thought you were going to say then, Mark. I bet if his son was competent, he would have retired by now.
No.
That's probably how he feels.
I'm not gonna.
Yeah, that's not even shade.
He
Put myself
inferred
in
it.
that position. No.
Have you guys heard about the Colombian woman who said that she claimed that she animated the entire first 10 minutes of the film of The Boy and the Heron.
Huh.
Yeah, so she claimed, she went to the meeting, she said, I actually worked for Miyazaki remotely. And it became really sus because she kept saying things like that. And like, oh no, yeah, I can animate. And then they showed her like her designs and like her drawings, and it was like not up to the quality, right? And apparently Miyazaki loved her, and she said things like, oh my God, he was really happy and nice to me. And I was like, wait a second, that doesn't sound like him. So it turns out that she lied about it.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. And she had to publish an unofficial apology. But here's my comment. Here's what I was saying. Like, he doesn't even like his son. Why would he like you? A Colombian woman who doesn't even speak Japanese.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
lock off.
you say that, but then again, a lot of times when someone hates their son, they do really find a stranger they love who has nothing to do with it.
Yes.
So
But I'm
that's
like, it's not gonna be a
impossible.
Colombian woman who
No.
works remotely, and yeah, like nah,
Maybe
it's not gonna
not.
be you, darling.
I mean, better that than I don't know. There's the whole scandal now where some low budget productions we're using an animation studio that outsourced work to North Korea, so it's like literally, almost slave labor is making itself
Wow,
into
North
animated
Korea.
films. Or,
I mean,
I
animation has always used a bunch of slave labor.
Yeah.
that's
What,
true.
what happened
but
is
it
they
says-
outsourced it to China, and then China they bump it over to their connection, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how true this is, but it says in the trivia that Miyazaki personally corrected or redrew 80,000 of the
I believe it.
144,000
It's true.
animation cells.
Yeah, I believe it.
It's true.
Yeah.
That man
So that's-
cannot get his hands
He's a
away from.
perfectionist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this was his first retirement, so he was like, "Yeah, man, I'm not even getting tired yet."
So, having now watched these few Ghibli films, I hadn't watched much Ghibli before I met Mercy. I have watched every single Pokemon movie, and they're literally just
Ghibli.
they're either Mononoke, because about a third of them are about some sort of lake in a forest that heals Pokemon, and there's a legendary Pokemon, and the humans try and take it, and they have to bring it back. Or they're Laputa because they're about some sort of big flying contraption, or they're Nausicaa because they're about some sort of beast on a rampage that need to be calmed. Pokemon just keeps remaking these three Ghibli movies with Pokemon over
The
and
formula
over.
worked for
Yeah.
him. He has to look at him. Right.
I swear there were Eevees in both Nausicaa and Castle in the Sky.
Oh yeah.
It's
Or
so
close,
very
something
similar,
like
yeah.
Eevees. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Is
guess
there a
it's-
yak Pokemon?
Well, just
No.
recently, right? In Legends Arceus, you do ride a deer.
All right.
I mean,
And
for
also
me, the
Torrent
bigger-
in
yes, yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
was about to say myself there from Elden Ring.
Well, and also the Elden Beast.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Like the Nightwalker.
Yeah.
Was that what
Nightwalker.
it's called? Yeah.
Which it is kind of relevant because the most it looks like the Elden Beast is right at the very end of the film.
Yep.
Like when it finally passes on, basically. And in
It just
both
didn't-
cases, that is basically godhood incarnate without a mind.
Mhm.
So that's
Yeah.
a very clear reference.
But the other Miyazaki did give the Elden Beast a big giant sword.
That's true. He does tend to do
also,
that.
yeah, also, yeah.
Pretty-
Beasts need swords.
I'm gonna show
I
you
know
the
who
Elden
that is because he told me.
Beast.
Imagine that big thing at the end of Princess Mononoke, but it had a giant sword and you have to kill it. And you're standing in a puddle of like 1 inch of water.
Oh,
And
that's
it's really far
I
away.
thought that was a screenshot from the.
From Mononoke.
Yeah.
Yeah, I showed her the Elden Beast.
I was like,
All
that's
right, cool.
what do you mean? That's a Nightwalker. So one of the reasons why I love that god so much is like it's terrifying to me. I keep thinking, yep, I would die. I would kill myself before that thing reached me. Like that's nightmarish.
Yeah.
Of course, the ooze that comes from him, from the god that kills everything, that threatens to kill everything. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't like that. Thank you.
Yeah,
I actually found
very
the daytime.
specifically-
The daytime one was scarier to me. The face, the
Yeah.
weird face. That was
Yeah,
What
it
would
was
you
a weird
guys do
face.
if you're walking down, like if you're in the woods and suddenly you see that thing?
The
run?
daytime version. Like, yeah,
I don't
I
know.
basically
You'd
had
crap
that
yourself
experience
first.
with the daytime version.
You found
what,
out
I
you were the
went
human
up-
a
face.
deer with a
Um,
human face.
No,
I was gonna say, huh?
When I went the first time I went up to try and see the snow monkeys in Nagano, I saw a what are they called? I always forget what they're called.
Ah.
A sero.
Mm.
Which in the Japanese language calls it a deer. It's actually closely related to a goat, but it doesn't look like any animal you've ever seen. It looks like a wolf/goat with a beard. And so
It's a weird little
I'm up in
cat.
the mountains, and suddenly this creature I didn't know exist just steps ethereal out of the trees, looks at me for a moment, and goes about its way. And when you're in your 30s, you feel like you know all the animals. Like, when you're a kid, you learn about new animals. I didn't think I was
Yeah.
still learning about new animals.
Right.
I thought I knew the animals. So this thing steps out of the woods. I'm like, have I just seen like some sort of forest god?
I mean, I've been to the Hollow Earth yet, I think.
True.
That's true. Would Godzilla and Kong, would they be considered gods in the Mononoke universe?
Well, that's it.
mean-
In like Japanese animism, what they'd later called Shinto,
Hmm. Yes.
It's all gods.
Yeah, yeah.
The forest
everything
is a god
gods.
and the mountain
Mhm.
is a god, and all the beasts are little gods.
Yes,
So of course Godzilla would be a god.
that would be so cool.
Did
And
that
that's
came up?
why the 1998 American one,
Hmm.
it's that creature's official name in the fandom is Zilla, because there's no god in that creature.
And Maddie's right, it did came up.
That came up. No, I was saying when it came up when I was talking about Spirited Away, I was explaining the same animism thing where like every stream, every rock has a god, and the
Mhm.
question was like, well, what if you put a boulder and change the flow of the river? Does that make it a new god? I'm like, yes, it does. You make
Yeah.
a new shrine.
But also, but like that's the point, right? You put a rock in the river, you change it a little bit, but you don't change the whole river.
Mhm.
And like, we're pretty small in the face of things like rivers and mountains.
And the idea
Yeah.
you dam up a area and you make a man-made lake,
Yeah.
So is
Well,
that a new
yeah.
god? It's like, yes, that's a new god.
Well,
You make a little shrine next to
And maybe
it.
that's
but yeah.
why the modern world feels like it doesn't have any gods anymore, because we can change the course of rivers now.
It's like we all know that you build the fanciest dam in the world, it'll be gone if nobody's maintaining it. It'll be gone in like 300 years.
And I guess in a sense,
that's-
that's one of the sentiments that really come through. Oh my, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting all my names. What's the name of the lady? The boss lady.
Ebisho? Eboshi.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Lady Eboshi. I think that's one of the feelings that come through her. Like, we're just humans, right? We're just little things to the strength of the forest, and let alone the universe. And she gives power to the people who have none, right? Like the sick, like the
lepers,
leopards,
and
exactly.
women who escaped the
Yes,
houses. Yeah,
exactly.
She was a
And
super interesting character to me because
she really
like
was.
when you first meet her and they're kind of going across the mountains and she abandons her men just to leave them to die, you're kind of like, oh, this is obviously the villain of the piece. But then you meet her in Irontown, is that what it's called? And you see, okay, she's freed all these women, she's provided a home for the lepers, and she's actually, got a real moral heart to her. Then you see her pursuing after the forest, and Ashitaka runs up to her and says, Irontown's been attacked by the samurai, you need to go and save them. And she just says, leave the women to it, they'll be fine. I've got to go kill this forest.
Also explicitly said she doesn't believe him. She thinks he's lying to save the spirit.
I guess, yeah. I kind of, yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah, who knows how true that is, whether she believes that or not, but
yeah,
she says it at least.
But like a super interesting, I mean, from what I've seen of Ghibli so far, like they're great shades of grey characters, like
Definitely.
of good and bad human characters in a way. And I think she's probably one of the more interesting. It was really interesting arc. Same with San, like even a saint by any means. Like she was going about killing townspeople and just to get Iboshi for the sake of revenge. So yeah, really, really interesting morals at play in this. It's not a kids' film in that sense.
And I love Ashitaka just stepping in between them, just punching them both out and carrying her away.
King.
Getting shot for his troubles.
It's interesting that it's not really San's movie. Like she is a heroic character, but she's not the hero of the film. She's just sort of the center of everything in a sense.
Legend of Zelda stars Link. A lot of the Disney movies are named after the princess, but the prince does all the actual
work.
No, what's the word? He has all the agency.
Yeah. If the princess is unconscious the entire movie, then the princess has no choice but to have agency or nothing's gonna happen. If the movie is about Snow White passed out and there's nothing else.
If this was a Disney film, you'd be like, oh yeah, typical. But actually for Miyazaki it's quite rare. Usually it is his female characters you have.
Yeah.
Like especially like Nausicaa, like the one dude in that is useless. Like she does everything in that film. She's a badass.
Yeah. I wanted to, of course.
I was gonna say for a good chunk of the back half of the film as well, like after he gets shot, like Ashitaka's out of business.
That's true. He has a little section where
yeah,
like,
I wasn't
sat in the girls there.
It reminds
wasn't
me of
trying to give
Luffy,
him-
where every arc he has to be taken out of commission for a little section because he'll just wreck everyone.
or like
The
Goku.
The Goku
Yeah, yeah,
effect.
yeah. He
Yeah.
has to be dead for a bit so everyone else gets to fight.
Yeah.
I definitely
Yeah,
wanted to bring
like-
up the situation with the women. I
Mm.
mean, Miyazaki is very famous for writing women, and I think he does it nicely because he writes them as humans.
Mm.
So, I really like every single woman he's ever written. Well, let me rethink that statement. I think I do. Yeah, yeah. I like every single woman he has ever written. And a lot of animators and a lot of directors wish and writers wish they could have this skill. That's
Mhm.
all I'm gonna say.
Yep.
Yep. I did kind of wish that we could just get more of the women, the big buff women, just beating the crap out of somebody.
God,
But you know,
Mm.
No, I mean
I
that I
thought that's
guess
where it was
that is the
headed.
thing. Dialogue. I know, for example, I can't write dialogue to save my life. It'll all come out sounding like an Ed Wood movie. So
Mm.
Mm.
I really liked, and I think remembering that this film is like 27 years old, its depiction of like samurai, there's like no honor or respect or anything put on their names.
Mm.
They are just like, they're just warlords and
savages,
assholes,
yeah.
which, you know, most of them actually were.
Mm.
Like, especially if you're in like the Warring States periods and stuff. They're just local power hungry warlords.
Yeah.
I
And
love the
particularly-
scene where they turn up at the gates and the women just shoot at them at their feet and
Yeah.
laughing. That's brilliant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Incredible. They're not afraid to die. And you've told me about it before, like the Japanese. Still, my brain don't understand.
In a country where the ground can just swallow you at any moment.
Hold
Or
on,
the seeds could just.
we're having another edit point. I am going to try something
No.
really quick. I'm going to actually undo my connection and redo it because that often fixes it. So give me
Okay,
a
do you-
moment.
Okay.
Sorry.
I trust.
Staying
is-
really still.
Cold never bothered
At
me
least it's-
anyway.
Okay,
At
let's
least-
try that. Maybe hopefully that fixed it.
Is that something you've done before?
Yes.
Okay.
Not for
cool.
recording, unfortunately, but sometimes I get up in the morning and my
Ah,
internet's
well,
a little
let's hope
dodgy.
the recording works.
It is
Okay.
recording, so that's no problem.
Yeah,
I
it
see.
says this meeting is being recorded.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when did
Is
we...
it cloud recording or local?
Local.
Oh, okay. You're gonna have to send it to me, remember?
Yeah, I know.
I forgot what we were
Mercy,
talking
your
about.
point, by the way, did not come through at all. That's
Ugh,
why I decided I
can't
needed
believe
to
it.
change
Yeah, so
the connection.
Mark was talking about how it's cool how they are shooting at the samurai, and then you were talking about
About death.
how samurai don't fear death.
Yeah, and like I like the way. So we this is all like a comment that comes to my mind because we saw Shogun,
Mm.
right?
I did-
Don't
I
include
did
the
not.
news
Okay.
we, I haven't yet.
No, I'm scared. No, like it's coming
I've
through.
not finished that yet.
Okay, it's pretty nice. And I was watching it with him, and I went like, "How are they so ready to die?" They're like, "I'll kill myself, whatever." Well, not whatever, but it's like, "Yeah, I'll do it." Okay, sure, I'll kill myself. And I'm like, why would they be so willing to do it? Because for me, as I said, my little Mexican brain does not comprehend, no comprende. So, he told me about it, like how it's just so. Can you explain it for me?
Well, I think a big part of it is that Japan will kill you.
Yes.
Like there's earthquakes, there's tsunamis, there's fires. So I think people have just a different relationship with death
Mm.
than a lot of Western countries.
Yes.
And then also, like, the samurai was a warrior class. They existed to be warriors. So the best thing you could do is die a good death. It's also like
we'll be
for
talking about
every-
this in a lot more detail higher on the list when we get to Harakiri, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But also for every samurai who was like this perfect exemplary ready to die hero, I'm sure there were 100 who weren't.
Oh, for
Like,
sure.
but no one remembers them.
Yeah.
This is like the argument I had with my colleagues when we were talking about I would go on the spaceship to Mars.
Mm.
And they were like, "But you're an idiot, you'll die." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'll be remembered forever."
I would kill you if
Yeah.
you go there.
Yeah, I know. This
I-
is when I was single.
I know as far as video games are concerned, there's like certain famous samurai who always show up in like what is it? Samurai. What's that game with just
Samurai
a ton of
Warriors.
Samurai Warriors, that was called, where it's just like
Samurai Warriors is the
waves of dudes.
Dynasty Warriors spin-off. Yeah.
Dynasty, right?
Dynasty
Because
Warriors is the China one. Samurai Warriors is the Japan
Oh,
one.
okay. Right. Because
Oh,
a
could
lot
you
of them
pass by?
show
I
up in the
forgot.
Yeah, for
Samurai
sure.
Showdown, and also certain movies like Ninja Scroll, I think, has one of those guys in it,
It look warm, but it's
Yeah.
fine.
where it's like I can't remember. I'm blanking on their names, but there's always like guys with the same names who are dressed the same who show up in a lot
Yeah.
of these Japanese things. Where I'm like, oh, this must be a famous guy
Mm-hmm.
who
One who
died
shows
for
up a
some-
lot is Sanada Yukimura, and Matt is like a stone's throw from his castle right now.
Oh, neat.
Correct.
You should start praying to him and hope that he smites your enemies. See what happens.
His
Ooh.
well, the cool thing about him is he was the guy that Tokugawa, the guy who eventually conquered Japan, famously could never take his castles.
Hmm.
And speaking of fail sons, on the way to Sekigahara, the final battle which basically ended Japanese samurai wars, his son thought, "Oh, I'll impress Dad. I'll stop and take this castle." Got bogged down, failed to take it, and didn't make it to the final battle.
Speaking of
Nice.
failed sons.
I want a movie about that. I'm sure there is one.
He got a bad job review that day.
Mm, yeah.
1 star on LinkedIn.
Ah, yes, my useless son.
I'm pretty sure it delayed him getting the position of shogun for like a decade.
I guess so.
Oh man.
But all of this to say that the women in that film are badass. They're ready to die.
Mm.
I really like the women in that film.
Yeah, if we're talking about like the quote unquote the samurai,
Yeah,
those women display it a lot more than any of the actual samurai in
for
this film.
sure, for sure. Good role models. I want to be them
Yeah.
when I grow up.
There was a moment you were talking about like how you like his women.
Mm.
There was a scene where Ashitaka went and helped them on the mill, and they had the way they were all dressed in like barely held on kimono and stuff.
Yeah.
But I was like, this doesn't feel sexualized,
No,
even though I'm getting all this little glimpse of anime side boob. You know how that would be in most other animes.
no, but it's like if me and my I'm sorry, if me and my girlies were like
doing
taking-
sweaty
like,
work in a
literally,
mill. Of
I would be
course.
half naked too.
Yeah.
And it would be how it is. That's womanhood. That's
Mm-hmm.
sisterhood. That's how it is.
Yeah. It just shows that you can, like, people use a lot of excuses for what is essentially just titillation
Yeah.
in animes and video
Mhm.
games.
In
And this
Hot
shows
Dog.
that you can do nudity without it being.
Mm.
You can
And
call it
in-
Hideo Kojima if you want. There, like you don't have to.
Well, but it's not just it's everywhere, right? It's Stellar Blade recently. Although
Oh, yeah.
actually, I will give Stellar Blade credit. The director of that was just like, nah, I just wanted to show tits and ass because I love it. So at least he was honest.
The Yoko Taro approach.
Yeah, there was no like none of us are going to regret our words and deeds on that one.
Yeah,
I think- Go ahead.
sorry, I thought when I saw Nausicaa, I thought there were upskirts in it, but it turns out she was wearing pants. The color grading.
Yeah,
is-
it took me a little while to
I paused it and looked it up. I was like, is this movie really showing me this many
you paused it
upskirts?
and looked up her skirt. Wow.
No.
Oh.
So I
I
used
looked
to do on
up
Super Smash
upskirts.
Brothers and Princess Peach.
Yeah.
No,
This-
no. It
yeah.
took me about the first 20 minutes to realize she was wearing pants. They are close to her skin shade.
Yeah, I was the opposite. I was actually kind of like, I don't know if I can watch this, man. I was like, I feel weird watching this. if it's gonna do this, but
Yeah.
you know, because that happens like immediately. But
Mm.
anyway, weird
I
color
think-
grading.
If the Ashitaka scene where he goes and helps the women where it was directed by any other guy or director, I guess in general, would be like, oh, titties, awooga, honk honk, and like with
Yeah.
the hard eyes and whatever. And oh, let me get some of that. And yeah, don't look at me. And he's like, okay, boring, done before. doesn't add anything to nothing. But it's like, but it's titty, so great. Not even tasteful titty, just titty.
Tasteful titty. There we go.
And I mean, I'm gonna be honest. As a woman myself, I would consider myself a woman. I am, that's how it is, cisgender. I really like watching just women existing and doing their thing and being human. Because me myself, I mean, I don't know if you guys know, this is a secret. I guess the Woman Council will shoot me dead if I say it on air. I mean, not on air, but like on a recording. But we're nasty. We sweat. Yeah, we fart. Like, we're human. So I like that. I like Miyazaki's rendition of that, like giving us dignity in animation. Unheard of. Sorry. But I love it.
Since we've been charting it on his podcast, I guess this is another movie to go into the black goo genre.
Yes.
Yep. Well, I referred to it in my notes as dark spaghetti, but
okay.
Why?
When
like
I read
the black goo on like the
the black
stuff.
spaghetti.
The forbidden pasta.
One of my favorite things in this movie is just a tiny thing where he was breaking up the fight, and then the stuff started coming out of his arm, and Son was just like swatting at it, like
Yeah.
that's great.
Have you guys seen? I'm assuming you have Spirited Away.
Yes.
Remember when there's a little like slug on top of a seal that she rescues, like she has to give to Senibaba? That little slug, it has the same consistency as the slugs that give the curse in Mononoke Hime, and I think in my mind it's the same thing.
Well, Mark and Jay, you played Dark Souls 3, right?
Yeah,
about 20 hours. I'm kind of a casual.
But the very
Souls
first
player.
boss in Dark Souls 3 you would have seen.
Yes.
It's that same black goo
Yes.
eruption. And I remember watching a video at the time talking about how Dark Souls 3 actually is very inspired by Japanese mythology specifically, and like that version of like what is pure and what is impure. What the video failed to say was, "Oh, this is just Miyazaki ripping off the other Miyazaki again."
he's just wearing a shirt that says I'm a name tag. This is Miyazaki, and he shows up. He's like, I'm Miyazaki.
Yeah.
I made this. No, I mean I've also found a bunch of guys in Dark Souls 3 where will just be a bunch of random dudes, but then there'll be one that will explode into the black goo if you don't kill him fast enough. But I think that's gonna continue.
That's cool.
I'll get to that eventually. I
What's
feel
the
like
first name of this Miyazaki? Of
Hayao.
the Hayao? Same?
No, oh wait. There's too many Miyazaki.
I'm sorry.
Okay, no.
Hidetaka,
Yeah, okay. Like as Mark said, imagine he comes into a room and he's like, Miyazaki. And in small letters, Hidetaka.
Yeah, he owes a lot to either Ghibli or Berserk. That's where
Dave loves referencing Berserk as well.
I mean, who doesn't love referencing? I love referencing Berserk.
I was curious looking up the dubcast who voiced who, and I might go back and watch one of the scenes where Moro speaks to Okuto, the blind boar. Because Moro in the dub, I've just seen is voiced by Gillian Anderson, and Okuto is voiced by Keith David, and I think that would sound incredible.
Yeah.
I believe this is Gillian. Gillian Anderson spent equal time in UK and America growing up, so she apparently can do a perfect British accent. I've heard her British accent. I wasn't totally convinced, but what do I know?
Well,
but
you're gonna have to.
I think she does one for this. Yeah.
A wolf using a British accent.
British wolf.
Okay.
British wolf.
Why not?
Oh yeah, why not?
I'm sure this was pitched as it's a prestige project from Miramax, and well, I referenced how they messed with this film. Like even after they promised to do no cuts, they apparently released this into a lot fewer theaters in the West than they promised, and then expressed surprise that it made little money at the box office. So that's the thing I said about stabbing Weinstein.
I was looking at the American theatrical poster too, which kind of eats it. It's just,
I was looking at it.
It
looks dreadful.
Yeah.
American poster for this film.
I think that has something to do with why I did not see this in the theater, because I saw that poster. It was like, no,
Oh, dear. What,
They
what is this
screwed it up.
mysterious coin?
So the
Yeah,
Weinsteins did
it's
not want
about
you to see
money.
this
See?
movie, I guess.
Yeah, it's about how Princess Mononoke became the president of Japan, and they made coins with her face on it. That's what it's
Yeah, that's
about.
what it looks like. So yeah, I think that actually was a factor in bad marketing for sure.
Yeah, and I went and
All right.
rewatched the old trailer from the VHS tapes because I was like, well, I really just watched it to see if they were still using the term Japanimation because I was kind of curious about that, and they did
That's
not use
horrible.
the term Japanimation in the
That's
marketing
too
for
bad.
this, but
That's
it
horrible.
didn't really reveal anything about the movie. I mean,
Yeah,
not any of the
exactly.
cool stuff.
I almost
Yeah.
feel like that movie poster is trying to pretend it's not an animated film.
Mm.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it confused me when I was a dumb
It
18-year-old
looks
or
like a sort
19-year-old.
of 80s, 90s fantasy film, right?
Mm. I see that poster working better with Nausicaa.
Yeah.
Yeah. It-
Yeah.
It literally says the fate of the world rests on the courage of one warrior, which is not an apt description of this film.
Absolutely.
The fate of the
It-
world, maybe. I don't know. But it's really
It-
more just the fate of
The
the
fate of this
forest.
forest, yeah.
It
Yeah,
kind of
my
reminds me of the poster
And-
for, maybe it's just the color of DreamWorks film Prince of Egypt,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
around the same time period.
That's just bad late 90s aesthetic, I guess.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that same color palette could also be Stargate or The Mummy or
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
just
yeah.
the look of the time, I think.
I
Now
guess
I'm
so.
looking through my notes. My alternate title for this movie was Action Lorax. That would have been fine, but
But,
I love that.
but yeah,
So,
if the tagline was something like,
he
the fate of
speaks
the
for the
forest
trees.
depends on all of these animals and all these people working together, even though some of them have different interests, and this one guy might die, but he's trying not to die, and he has a sick arm that kills people. I mean,
It just
you'd
rolls
watch it
off the
then.
tongue.
I think yeah, I
The
think that would be
Buster
my
has to
mark.
go fast, and if it drops below a certain speed, it will explode.
Yeah, dark spaghetti.
Ooh, that'd be fun. Yeah, so the dark spaghetti is pretty filthy. His arm's pretty filthy.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
There's black goo.
I mean,
Some
this
gore.
is
Anything else filthy about this, or do we just call it a film?
it's both. This film feels like it has more in it than most of the films we watched, even at a brisk 2 hours 13 minutes.
Mhm.
This is the filmest film that has ever been filmed.
It's the filmest film
Yeah.
we've done, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah,
It is
we've just
interesting.
finished the first page of our tweet.
All right.
Hmm.
It is interesting though
What?
that just
Well, we
movie
have the list of
cultures.
the films.
I
We've
see.
done the first
Yeah.
quarter of them.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
it is funny how like this has just become like I actually derailed my thought. There was something I was gonna say.
I'm sorry.
Interesting. Something was interesting, but it wasn't that interesting. Who wants to hear some bad reviews?
Better than
Interesting.
Citizen Kane, yeah. Better than Lawrence of Arabia,
Yeah, I think it kind of is better than Citizen Kane. I mean, I didn't
Better than
expect to come
Space
in to
Odyssey,
saying that.
it's more fun.
Yeah.
Better than Requiem for a Dream, easily. Better than Once Upon a Time in America, obviously.
And the music slaps.
Yeah.
Like the music for this film, like Joe
Yeah.
Hisaishi really threw his whole Hisaishi Busi out. He did what he had to do. He came and slayed.
What a way to put that.
I didn't expect that to come up. Anyway.
We got a lot
well,
of
it's really
comic
good,
book
what can I
movies
say?
coming up in the next
This is
the next quarter.
we only have one more Miyazaki coming up, which is Spirited Away on this
No,
podcast.
we got Grave of the Fireflies.
Oh, you're
boy.
right.
Oh my
That's
god.
the one
you
I've been
guys.
avoiding watching for my entire
Yeah.
life.
Raise your hand if you
Yeah.
haven't seen it.
Yeah, that's me.
Oh my god.
We're gonna see it when once it's on the list. What's the point of
Good
watching
luck.
it beforehand? We're gonna get to it.
I've been avoiding it so hard I forgot that it existed. But, yeah, most of his films are in the mid sevens or higher.
Well, Grave of the Fireflies is not directed by Miyazaki. It's by Isao Takahata, rest in peace.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes
and
sense.
he's the one who directed also is another princess story.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot.
Princess
I forgot.
Momomoki.
Exactly. Princess
I-
Mononoke.
I have a 1-star review
pretty
here that
beautiful,
should
too.
piss everybody off.
Yay.
This one is wholly censored do I hate anime. I mean, as in it's censored, right? They censored it themselves. So
Oh, okay.
Pathetic.
Okay.
Yeah.
let me
Cowards.
start off by informing you of my prejudice against anime. I don't have any conceptual or philosophical differences with it. It just grates on my nerves. Nonetheless, I felt compelled to watch this movie given the rave reviews by critics, its acclaim by the film students I know, its notable American voiceover stars, and the fact that my stoner friends popped it in the DVD player. So it was either watch it or leave. Well, several root canal painful hours later, I felt I could hate anime in a whole new light. I came away thinking that the movie did indeed have impressive animation that I still find obnoxious and tackled some environmental issues in a heavy-handed way. I thought that if American drawn characters could have been put into the lusciously drawn backgrounds and with the shrill gerrymans the characters were always launching into replaced with more subtle dialogue, then I could at least give it 5 out of 10 for not completely pissing me off. But lo and behold, I was wrong, or so I
Yeah.
was informed by some pretentious anime fan. Apparently, all the environmental subject matter is just a Western construct being superimposed onto the movie by audiences who don't understand Shinto mythology. Well, la di frickin' da. You mean I didn't even understand it? Excuse me for not having a degree in Asian studies, but I don't think that should be a requirement to see a friggin' cartoon. Am I uneducated and insensitive to Japanese filmmaking? Have I misunderstood Kurosawa's movies all these years? Was I suckered in by the lack of constant yelling and screaming? Was I merely projecting Western values onto his characters? Or was he a genuinely good director who could make movies about people from another time and place that transcend seemingly disparate cultures? Luckily, I don't think this film will ever supersede cult status, so the rest of us who are too mainstream won't have to suffer through it again. Call me crazy, but I like the Coen brothers, Coppola, Levinson, Will Stillman, and of course Kurosawa.
Oh my God, that went on and on and on, didn't it?
It did go on and on, but it just kept getting angrier and angrier. So I just had,
Yeah.
because I do often
What
edit
year
these
was
when I'm
this?
reading it. 2001.
Oh, okay.
Coward. That
Man,
person is a
that was
coward.
pretty incredible.
He was just
I mean,
upset about 9/11.
yeah,
The
just
part where he
like
talked about
No,
American
April
characters.
22nd.
Oh,
Ah,
he maybe he
sorry.
did
Well,
9/11.
they
They
deserve
did it.
9/11.
They caused it. Yeah.
He's ready
They
for
caused
it.
The
I
the
hope
part
that
where
writer was
he
in the
talked
North
about
Tower.
he talked about American drawn characters in the backgrounds, and for the rest of the review you read, I was just imagining The Simpsons.
I love that.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
So it's kind of I got a little sidetracked researching Miyazaki stuff. There's another hand-drawn animated film that lost best Oscar to Boy and the Heron called Robot Dreams from Spain that has no dialogue, and it's getting a wide release this year. So I'm
Oh,
kind
I
of
think-
interested.
Yeah, I think I know the one you mean. Yeah, my friends have seen it, and apparently it's really good.
Yeah.
I think it's boring. I'm kidding. I don't know. I don't
Well,
know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I haven't seen
It's
it.
really
yet.
I
good,
just
but it's
I just found
boring.
out that Ghibli made a Star Wars short about Grogu.
Is that in one of
Yeah.
those Visions compilations?
Guess I'm not a super fan because I didn't know about it.
I saw the first one of those, but
It's
it
the
had
Baby Yoda
Studio
from-
Trigger did something
Oh.
where
Mandalorian.
two people were screaming at each other while using the Force at each other.
Mm.
I think the best one of those was the first one, but I don't know who animated
I haven't seen
that.
any of them. I don't know if it's part of that
Yeah.
or just a Disney Plus chuck it on
It's-
there so kids will watch it thing.
It's not as good as
Miyazaki did it.
Animatrix.
Here you go.
No, it
Something
wasn't
like that.
Miyazaki. It was the one of the other ones.
Yeah.
Takahata.
No, not one of the
in
main
peace.
ones.
But
Oh, right. He has.
Yeah,
Sorry, Katsuya Kondo. Who's that?
I don't know.
61 years.
Some person.
He's just an animator at Ghibli.
I don't know what are the new household names now. I know, of course, Miyazaki, but I don't know if he's. I'm sorry, Goro Miyazaki, if you're listening to this, but I don't know. I don't know if he is like a household name for the brand.
oh,
He was listening, but he's tuned out now.
yeah,
Nah.
He-
After I called
was
him
a
a failed
household-
son earlier.
Review
he
got
was
him
a
out the door.
household name, and then Miyazaki overpowered him.
If,
now
if
he
my
has been
dad ever
forgotten.
says like, yeah, if my dad ever does that to me, if he goes like, yeah, you're an embarrassment, I don't want to see your movie, I would go, oh, okay, thanks,
My
Dad.
dad leaves my movie for a cigarette.
Yeah,
during the
like,
premiere.
My mom just like takes over my spot on this podcast. Let me show you. No, that wouldn't work. She would be upset by this movie. She would definitely wouldn't be able to watch something like,
Well, I found this movie upsetting.
I would love to do a film podcast with just like a mum who just comes on every week and says like there was too much swearing and violence.
My mom would say
Yeah.
that they're not true gods because the only true God is Jesus Christ.
Right.
Mm.
Yep.
Amen, brother.
I'd mentioned that I was doing a
Does she know that Jesus is buried in Japan?
Don't even get me started. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, that's why Evangelion happened, right?
Hmm.
Because Jesus is buried there. He's in the basement. Oh, I just was saying that I told my mom I was guesting on Matt's Twilight Zone podcast a couple of times, and she was like, I can't watch that anymore. It's too dark. Hey,
Mm.
Right. Alrighty.
yeah, but this is funnier in the context of that I like the darkest stuff. I mean, I'm bringing Perfect Blue to this podcast for my birthday, which also came out in
Mhm.
'97. The contemporary of this film lost an award to it in Japan, like a Japanese Academy Award. I don't know. Honestly, I think this is kind of better.
Yeah, I do love this film, and it's
Mhm.
obviously as a big Japanese history buff, it is probably the Ghibli that's most squarely aimed at me. And I love the music and the aesthetics of it. I think I do like Nausicaa a little more, maybe because it's got more of a slightly upbeat ending.
Yeah,
Mm.
I think I like Spirited Away a little bit better because that is literally sort of an original fairy tale, which I'm a big fan
Well,
of. Sort of like
one of the
Pan's
things
Labyrinth.
that's really impressive about this film is it fits neatly into like Japanese mythology, but none of the characters or concepts really are from Japanese mythology. Like it's just stuff that Miyazaki made up.
But he's
Yeah,
a
no,
Japanese fan, so
I was talking on
it
the other
counts.
podcast a few days ago, like for an American, like if you watch Toy Story, Western viewers know what are things from the culture. They know what's being invented for this movie, whereas a Westerner watching a Ghibli film like this or Spirited Away maybe doesn't know that as much. Like what is Miyazaki's inventing? What's this weird thing? That's so weird. Did Miyazaki make that? Well, no, actually, that's an ancient legend. That's a folk tale.
It's like I understood what he was going for with the deer with the human face, where everywhere it walked things bloomed and that it killed people sometimes, but it still was a pretty new thing to me, and it's scary.
Yeah.
So
Well, Yokai Watch has the man-faced dog, which is a dog with a man's face. He used to be a lawyer or something, but now he's not. Now he's a
Incredible.
man-faced
Yokai
dog.
Watch?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh, you got it from the kids?
Yeah, I know what Yokai
Yeah,
Watch
I've
is.
had to draw many a Jibanyan. Less and less as time goes on.
Yeah, they don't like him as, which is too bad. I actually thought Yokai Watch was
Yeah, Yokai
entertaining.
Watch is fun.
Yeah, well the deer with the deer itself, obviously that shows up kind of in Breath of the Wild as the guardian of the mountain, the Satori. I had another point I was going to follow up with, but I've forgotten, so never mind.
All right, well.
Yeah, there you go.
Did anybody else, when they saw all the Koroks, did they think about strapping one of them to a wagon that was on fire?
They reminded me too much of in Neo, the sort of Souls-like samurai game.
Ninja game.
Yeah, when you go to level up, it has kodamas that are basically exactly like the ones from this. They even make the same little clicky noise.
Cool. Should I play that?
Maybe. It's a game where
haven't.
you can very easily accidentally build yourself a character where you make the game unplayable.
That sounds fun.
And then because it's very level based, you're like, I was just like, oh, I'm in this boss fight, I can't leave and I can't win. So I kind of bounced off the game.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I probably could go back to it and actually enjoy it, but there's also like I haven't played Sekiro yet, and I'm sure that's 10 times better.
I feel like you'd end up making an unplayable character.
I played through Sekiro waiting for the Elden Ring DLC, and I actually have been going back to Sekiro in between playing Elden. That might be my favorite game ever, dude. I had such a great time with it that it made me depressed when I was done.
Oh man.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah,
I think it secretly might be From Software's best game. Secretly.
Yeah. I haven't played everything. I haven't played Armored Core 6 or 5 or a lot of the little ones in between. I haven't played but man, yeah, that is like it is like how Ninja Gaiden for the Xbox felt feels like it was in the back of my brain, but better. I also just want to like show people. I send people movies of myself playing it. I'm like, look how cool this is, which I have not done as an adult really ever. So
I made Mercy sit and watch me beat Ganondorf in Tears of the Kingdom.
that's crazy.
But I love how do you call it,
Backseat gaming.
backseat gaming, because
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my god, what's going on? Look over there, take care over there. I'm gonna check online. How can you beat this?
I love whenever you watch me play a game, you're like, how did you know there was something in there?
Yeah,
I'm just like, gamer brain. There's a little shadow there. Of course there's something hidden in there.
yeah.
I check behind every waterfall.
Yep.
Yep. Roll at the walls, shoot the walls. That this is really funny because I played Zelda Ocarina of Time before I had like the adequate Zelda brain to know to shoot a couple of something in that game where you have to shoot a painting to get somewhere, and I was like, I thought I was stuck. I was like, I don't know what to do. I have no idea. And my friend was like, you just shoot the painting, dude. Like, oh, of course, shoot everything.
Maybe I appreciate art.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's right. I can't shoot a
Yes.
painting. It's not mine. This isn't my dungeon.
But just go inside the painting and just eat whatever is in the painting. Delicious in Dungeon reference.
Oh yeah. Haven't watched that yet, but I'm gonna watch it. But
It's
that
really
also would
good.
apply to Mario
It's
64.
really good. Yeah, it's really good. Please watch it.
That's Trigger, right? They made that?
I think
Trigger?
I
Map-
don't
no,
think.
yeah.
No?
I think it's. Is it not?
You're gonna Google it?
Yeah, but I just saw Mark also reach for his phone at the same time.
I want to say Madhouse, but I could be wrong.
Maybe Madhouse.
I typed everything wrong and it sent me to Dungeons and Dragons.
Maybe your fingers are too fat to work the
I was
phone.
typing delicious and it tried to get me to look at
I think so.
Deliverance.
Trigger. It is Trigger. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Trigger.
Mark was right.
Pretty good.
I-
Pretty good stuff. Anyway.
Yes, I love their
Sorry.
stuff. You guys seen that cyberpunk one?
Nah, I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That rules.
Really good. Really good.
There's so many things we need to watch.
Yeah.
Plus more Ghibli
Yep.
And Star
Um,
Trek.
and Star Trek.
I've always been curious about the Ghibli Loop on the Third movie that's supposed to be
Oh,
like
the Castle of
ridiculously.
Cagliostro.
Yes, it's supposed to punch way over its weight for a Loop on the Third story.
Yeah, it's fun. It's okay. I mean, if you like, I think it's one of the only, or like I've seen a couple things Lupin, but that one was fun.
There's a lot. as
But it's
far as-
very Ghibli also.
nice. I'll fill in my. Maybe I'll have time to fill in all of the movies before we get to the last one. Before we get to Grave of the Fireflies.
I think
man,
I think Grave is before Spirited.
I remember.
Okay.
Sorry, Princess Kaguya
Uh,
is the other one that Isao Takahata directed,
Yeah.
and Kaguya Hime is very, very, very beautiful.
I see.
Yeah, so please watch Isao Takahata's work as well
Mm.
before you watch Grave of the Fireflies. Just good luck, guys. I cannot wait to hear that episode. I'm pretty
Nice.
sure, I don't know if you guys cry easily, but me myself I
Yep.
had to pause a couple of times because I couldn't stop sobbing.
So you're saying
So-
have a good time before you have an intense time.
Yeah, exactly.
Me and Jay's co-host on our Zelda podcast,
Mm.
Jas, he says that's his favorite Ghibli.
It is beautiful. It is beautiful, but it's extremely sad.
Yeah.
I think I've cried through a lot of movies lately. It's just
Mm.
the whole thing where the collapse of democracy over here has me all
Oh, right.
feeling a certain way. I think.
Yeah, my
Um,
bad.
Yeah, but one more thing I wanted to bring up. Man, this watching Ghibli movies this week, definitely think Das Boat is an anime, and I think it influenced a bunch of these too. Or
Which one?
I'll have to stew on that a bit.
That's
Okay,
Bug
Peterson.
is an anime.
I sort of
think it's
brought
what
that
Mark
up when
just
we did the
said.
podcast about it. Or I
Das
said
Boot.
it reminded me of an
German
anime.
submarine
Is
film.
it Das
but
Boot?
It's written
It
Das
just-
Boot, but it's pronounced Das Boot.
Boot.
It's
Boot.
German.
You gotta add the,
Das
the
Boot.
Das Boot.
there you go. Say it like a German.
Das
Das Boot.
A
Yeah,
lot of
that's
this
like a
stuff
Russian.
reminded me of that. I feel like there's, if it didn't influence some of this stuff, then there's just similar influences going into both of them. But a never-ending story, also, really.
Mm.
Or-
It's just them being on the losing side of the war because we got them.
Yeah, the
that is
axis
if that
of
is an
anime.
anime, what's the opening?
Sorry, what'd you say, Mercy?
If that's bot is an anime, what's the opening?
Oh, it's let me think. Oh man. It's just a song about guys in a submarine and they're all dancing and
It's like
It's
an
it's
inappropriate
crabs.
Japanese cover of Yellow Submarine.
I was gonna say it's
exactly.
It's a long way to Tipperary, of course.
Oh yeah, long way to tip. Yeah, long way to Tipperary, but it's the anime version, the
The
J-pop
J-pop version.
and they're all dancing and they're all really happy. I love how anime openings for series is like everyone's happy and having a great time only in the opening and then never
Oh my
again.
god, that's literally Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah, for sure.
That's how it is. It's
Oh,
just one
man.
song for the entire series.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll
I'm sure
wind this
listeners
one.
are sitting thinking they stopped talking about Princess Mononoke 15 minutes
But we're
ago.
talking about anime.
No, we're talking about anime.
The word Ghibli's been said recently, but yeah, I guess we will wind this one take this one into the forest and turn it into some goo then.
If you enjoyed this podcast, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/podcastios. There you'll find links to all the podcasts we make. There's Films and Filth, the podcast where we rank the top 100 and bottom 100 films as rated by users of IMDb, even though the public cannot be trusted. Sometimes they bring us good films like this. Sometimes they rate dreadful shite really high. You can find Hyrule Field Report, where we have wrapped up a whole season on The Legend of Zelda, The Tears of the Kingdom. We've also covered, alongside Princess Mononoke, Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind, and Laputa Castle in the Sky, which in our theory, it was Mononoke on the ground, Laputa in the sky, Nausicaa in the depths. Some of it made more sense than others. You can find Game Show, where me and Jay and sometimes Mark and Matt and Mercy game each other about games. It's supposed to be a panel show in the style of British comedy panel shows. Sometimes it just becomes an actual dry quiz about video games.
Pretty
And
much.
sometimes it becomes a shambolic attempt to recreate a game show. And there's Monster
name the
Mash.
names.
Looking forward to that Soldier Boy console episode.
Trust me, I've got some plans. I've got some plans.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's fun.
The more I read about Soldier Boy, the more I'm regretting making you do that, because it turns out he's like a huge piece of shit.
Oh well, we can dive into that.
I know.
We can dive into that.
Yeah.
There's Monster Mash, the podcast about the monsters of Monster Hunter. That's on hiatus right now. There's Luke Loves Pokemon, the podcast about all the different Pokemons, which a lot of them are inspired by Ghibli, I think. And there's Time Enough podcast, where Matt goes through all the Twilight Zones. There's podcast 1999, where Matt and Mark are talking about Space 1999. Did I cover everything?
I think so. Yeah, we keep getting requests for Luke should be on Space 1999 because he's British. I'm like, well, I mean, you can, but I don't know if that's mutually exclusive.
I mean,
Just throw him
I'm
in at the
happy to
last
watch an
episode.
episode of a sci-fi
Yeah.
show, yeah. I'll come on and call you all C words and act very British.
You'd be amused by it.
I'm sure. Are there any Brian Blessed ones left?
Unfortunately, we've done this. There
Ah.
were 3 though.
All right. Bye.
Okay, that's a cut.
Oh, wait.
You're cutting?
Matt.
You're not cutting. I'm Matt.
Matt,
I'm Matt.
please give us some sage words of advice.
Get some sage, man. Sage your house. Get all the spirits out.
There we go. Bye.
we
Okay, I will stop the
Nice.
recording.